Inside a damp and cold cave, a young man sat working with a pestle and mortar. He ground a mud-covered green rock into powder, his movements steady and focused. Despite the harsh environment and the rough fabric clothing he wore, he seemed unaffected. Around him were others of similar age, all dressed the same but marked by various physical conditions. Some had deformities, others suffered from ailments like albinism or polio. Together they looked like exhibits in a twisted display of human suffering. Everyone in the cave was busy pounding ingredients into powder. Some crushed golden stones, others ground herbs, but not all were equally diligent. The calm was shattered when a scream echoed through the cave. A girl with albinism cried out as a man with a hair lip tried to grab her, grinning maliciously. "Just a little fun," he taunted, reaching for her. The young man grinding the green rock remained still, ignoring the commotion, but as the girl's cries grew louder, irritation flickered across his face. Tightening his grip on the mortar, he suddenly struck, the sound of stone meeting bone cutting through the noise. The attacker stumbled back, clutching his bleeding head. The girl quickly hid behind the young man, trembling as she fixed her shirt. "You're done for now," the attacker yelled angrily. "When the master finds out, he'll kill you." But the young man remained unfazed. "The master is nothing," he replied coldly, his words silencing the entire cave. The boldness of his statement left everyone stunned. He took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. His sudden anger confused even him. "Why am I acting like this? This isn't me. I need to stay in control," he thought to himself. Before the tension could subside, a voice rang out from the entrance. "Disciple, our master has summoned you," announced a man wearing a green Taoist robe. His attire, though old and worn, was far superior to the rough fabric of those in the cave. He carried a horsetail whisk and surveyed the group with an air of arrogance. The injured man smirked at the summoned disciple. "You're dead now. The master will deal with you," he sneered. Without a word, the young man rose, leaving the cave with another disciple who had also been called. She appeared sickly, her mouth deformed and drool leaking from the corner. As he walked away, the girl with albinism tugged at his sleeve, tears streaming down her face. Her silent plea begged him to stay, but he shook her off and kept walking. The cave he left behind was the preparation room, one of many within the sprawling underground network. The larger cave he entered was uneven and crudely constructed, with entrances to numerous smaller chambers branching out like an ant colony. Its sheer size hinted at the immense scale of the place, though the craftsmanship was clearly lacking. Despite the chaotic surroundings and the tension lingering in the air, the young man remained calm, his thoughts guarded as he prepared to face whatever awaited him. The two individuals walked deeper into the cave system, passing entrances to smaller chambers. Above each entrance hung rotting wooden planks carved with names such as the Spiritual Palace, Judgment Hall, Memorial Palace, and Four Heavenly Palace. The entire structure was designed to resemble a martial dojo, though its eerie atmosphere suggested otherwise. As they continued, the woman beside the young man pulled out a small black object and offered it to him. "Want some candy?" she asked in a monotone voice. Her vacant expression revealed her limited understanding, and though he felt irritated, he accepted the candy and tucked it away. Pleased, she placed another piece in her mouth and muttered to herself, "Master is great. Master gives us candy." After walking for some time, they reached their destination, a massive black furnace that towered like a metallic hill. Green smoke rose from it, drifting through a hole in the cave ceiling. The closer they got, the larger and more oppressive the furnace felt. However, it wasn't just the furnace that created the unsettling atmosphere. A hunchbacked figure stood before it, wearing a blue Taoist robe. His white hair was tied neatly and a crown adorned his head, giving him a deceptively noble appearance. This man was using a colossal pestle, far larger than the one the young man had handled earlier, to pound something in a stone urn. The loud, rhythmic sound of the pestle striking the rock echoed through the chamber. The woman beside the young man stammered, addressing the figure with great reverence as she bowed deeply. At the sound of her voice, the pounding abruptly stopped. The figure turned, and his appearance from the front was drastically different. His face was grotesque, his cracked lips barely covering his remaining teeth. Despite his sage-like posture, he had a sinister aura. The figure leapt into the air with surprising agility, his dirty robes fluttering as he grabbed the woman by her neck. Before she could react, he threw her into the stone urn and began pounding with the enormous pestle. Her screams were brief, drowned out by the relentless pounding. Blood and flesh splattered across his face, but he seemed unfazed as he chanted strange words with fervent intensity. When her remains had been reduced to a paste, he lifted the heavy urn and poured its contents into the furnace. Excitement gleamed in his eyes as he commanded his assistants to start the process. Two women, their faces heavily painted, stepped forward. One began fanning the flames while the other added a mix of powdered stones and live creatures into the furnace. A peculiar but oddly pleasant scent filled the air as the fire roared. The figure, now calm, closed his eyes and inhaled deeply, stroking the few strands of his beard. He seemed satisfied, his ugly face twisted into a smile. Finally, he turned his attention to the young man, his tone sharp and mocking. "I heard you called me insignificant. Is that true?" The oppressive atmosphere grew heavier. The young man, standing before someone who clearly valued life so little, froze momentarily. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath, silently reminding himself, "This isn't real. It's all fake." "Are you mute? Speak!" the figure demanded, stepping closer. The foul stench of rotting flesh grew stronger as he approached. The young man trembled but summoned his strength to open his eyes. The dark, oppressive cave disappeared, replaced by a brightly lit hospital ward. He was strapped tightly to a bed with leather belts. The fresh air and sterile surroundings starkly contrasted with the horrific scene he had just witnessed, leaving him confused and shaken. A young man let out a deep sigh of relief as he settled back in his hospital room. He pressed the microphone button near his bed, calling for assistance. A short while later, his attending physician entered, carrying a tablet, with a nurse accompanying him. The doctor sat on a stool, smiling kindly as he asked how the young man was feeling and whether there had been any changes in his hallucinations. The young man hesitated briefly, but then explained that his latest hallucination mirrored the previous one, with him trapped in the same setting. This time, however, he witnessed something even more horrifying. A bald figure performing a cruel act, harming someone in front of him as part of an unusual ritual. The man described the incident vividly, his voice tinged with unease. The doctor listened attentively, noting everything down on the tablet. Curiosity sparked in the young man, and he cautiously asked the doctor about the meaning of these hallucinations. He wondered if they reflected his subconscious mind or had deeper significance. The doctor, however, shook his head gently, advising him not to dwell on such thoughts. Instead, he stressed the importance of observing the duration of these episodes and maintaining his mental stability. The doctor reassured him that the hallucinations weren't real and reminded him to stay grounded. He explained that with proper treatment, recovery was possible and urged him to follow the logic of the imagined world when the episodes occurred. Hearing this, the young man's heart raced. Recovery was his ultimate goal. It was his key to leaving the hospital. The doctor then praised the progress the man had made, recalling how, upon admission, he couldn't differentiate reality from illusions. His current state was a significant improvement, and the doctor encouraged him to remain optimistic. As they spoke, the sound of soft footsteps approached the room. Both turned to see a young woman peeking in hesitantly. She wore a black turtleneck sweater and looked delicate, like a flower ready to bloom. Her smooth, pale complexion and dark hair flowing over her shoulders made her appear elegant and graceful. For a moment, neither of them spoke, their emotions reflected in their eyes. The doctor, sensing the situation, chuckled softly. Adjusting his glasses, he excused himself with a smile, reminding the young man to take his medicine on time. After the doctor left, the young woman stepped inside, her presence instantly lifting the man's spirits. She teased him about his awkward smile before pulling out a cloth bag. Inside it was an unexpected item: homework. The man groaned in mock despair, pretending to lament their friendship as she laughed mischievously. To his surprise, she then revealed a portable game console. However, she playfully held it out of reach, making him promise to call her respectfully before handing it over. Without hesitation, the man complied, eagerly grabbing the console. Being confined to the hospital had left him bored and restless, so this gift was a delightful escape. As he became engrossed in the game, the woman gently tugged at his hospital gown to get his attention. She reminded him of a promise they had made together. He paused the game, looking at her seriously. With determination in his eyes, he reaffirmed their shared goal: to enter the same university. Her cheeks flushed slightly at his sincerity, and she lowered her gaze. Softly, she encouraged him to recover soon, her voice filled with care. Moved by her words, the young man wrapped her in a hug. She blushed, but didn't resist, lowering her head shyly. They stayed like that, finding comfort in the quiet embrace. It was a tender moment, filled with unspoken emotions, as they both cherished the brief time they had together. Eventually, the woman had to leave. Her schoolwork demanded much of her attention, as this was an important year for her. Despite her busy schedule, she always found time to visit, and the young man deeply appreciated her presence. She was like a ray of sunlight in his otherwise gray and monotonous days. As he walked her to the door, something unusual caught his eye. A mortar on the table near his bed. He froze momentarily, startled, but when he looked again, it had turned back into a meal box. The woman noticed his reaction and asked if he was feeling all right. He quickly covered it up with a playful grin, pretending it was a joke to startle her. The woman frowned and gently scolded him for acting childish, though her tone was more amused than angry. Laughing together, they continued walking. Along the way, the young man held her hand, feeling a sense of calm and connection. Other patients lounging in the courtyard watched them fondly, reminiscing about youthful bonds. When they reached the hospital entrance, the woman turned back, her eyes filled with a mix of warmth and reluctance. She promised to return the following week and asked him to take care of himself. With a bittersweet smile, the young man watched her leave, already counting the days until her next visit.